Good day po guys. Ngayon po naman is lesson 3 naman po ang aking ipapakitang journal video. Ang title po ng lesson 3 natin is The Study of Criminal Behavior. Ako po ay si Adrian L. Sumagpang from 1E1 BS Criminology. At punta na po tayo sa Freud postulated the existence of three-part personality consisting of id, ego, and superego. Id. Ang id daw po is a part of unconscious that contains all the urges and the impulses including what we call libido, a kind of generalized sexual energy that is used for everything, from survival instinct to operation of art. The id is also called kind of stubborn for it responds only what Freud called pleasure. Pwede po natin itong tawaging if it is feel good, do it and nothing else. Ego. Ito daw po is a part of unconscious personality. It is what the person is aware of when they think about themselves and what they usually try to project towards other. Ito po yung diniscuss ni ma'am nung past lessons. Yung ego daw po is a dominated by what Freud called reality principle or tinatawag nating an orientation to the real world in which the person lives. It is continually trying to mediate the demands of the id and prohibition of the superego. Sa superego naman po tayo, isang part ng unconscious that is the voice of doing what is right and the source of self-criticism. It reflects society's moral values to some degree and person is sometimes aware of their own morality and ethics, but the superego contains a vast number of codes, prohibitions that are issued mostly unconsciously in the form of commands or don't statements. Meron pong mga defense mechanism like sublimation, repression, regression, denial, intellectual projection, fixation, undoing, reaction, formation, and displacement. Bago diretso na po tayo sa classification of behaviors. Sa classification of behavior po, meron po tayong dalawang behavior, ang normal behavior at abnormal behavior. Sa normal behavior po ay pwede po natin siyang tawaging adaptive or adjusted behavior. The standard behavior, the totally accepted behavior, because they follow the standard norm of society. Meron po tayong 6 factors of behavior, normal behavior. Efficient perception of reality, and second one is self-knowledge. 3 is ability to exercise voluntary control over his behavior, self-esteem and acceptance, productivity. Last is ability to form affectionate relationship with others. Sa abnormal behavior po is matatawag po siya nating maladaptive or maladjusted behavior. A group of behavior that is deviant from social expectation because they go against the norms or standard behavior of society. A maladaptive person may be understood by the following definitions. Meron po tayong 5 definitions of maladaptive person or abnormal behavior. Abnormal behavior according to variation of statistical norms based in a statistical frequency. Second po is abnormal behavior according to deviation from social norms. Behavior as maladaptive, abnormal behavior due to personal stress, abnormality to its legal point. Next naman po is the kind of behavior. Kinds of behavior. Meron po tayong overt or covert behavior. Second is conscious or unconscious behavior, simple or complex behavior, rational or irrational behavior, voluntary behavior. Sa overt or covert behavior, behavior that are outwardly manifested or those that are directly observable are overt behaviors. On the other hand, masasabi natin ang covert behavior are behavior that are hidden, visible to the naked eye. Visible are not hidden daw po, hindi daw po makikita sa visible to the naked eye. Conscious or unconscious behavior. Behavior is conscious when acts are within the level of awareness. It is unconscious. Acts are embedded in one's subconscious or unaware. Sa simple or complex behavior naman po. Sa simple or complex behavior, ito daw po yung mga acts or actions categorized according to the number of neurons involved in the process of behaving. Simple behavior involve less number of neurons while complex behavior ay ang involved daw po dito ay yung more number of neurons, a combination of simple behavior like rational or irrational behavior. Sa irrational behavior or irrational behavior, this is rational behavior. When a person acts with sanity or reason and there is a irrational behavior, when a person acted with no apparent reason or explanation as when a man loses his sanity and laugh out loud at nobody or nothing in particular. Voluntary or involuntary behavior. Voluntary behavior is an act done with full volition or will, such as when we discriminate, decide, or those, while involuntary behavior refers the bodily processes that even when we are awake or asleep like respiration, circulation, and digestion. After ng kinds of behavior, kasama po sa journal video ko yung aspect of behavior. Base po sa naintindihan ko kay ma'am, ang pasok po sa aspect of behavior, ang intellectual aspect, emotional aspect, social aspect, moral aspect, psychosexual aspect, political aspect, at value aspect. Sa intellectual aspect po is pasok dito yung aspect of behavior pertains to our way of thinking, reasoning, solving problems, processing information, and coping with the environment. Sa intellectual aspect po is pasok yung processing information and coping with the environment. Next po natin is the emotional aspect. This pertains to our feelings. Feelings po yung nararamdaman natin sa moods, temper, and strong motivational force. Sa social aspect naman po, this pertains to how we interact or relate with other people. Moral aspect. This refers to our conscience and concept on what is good or bad. Sa moral daw po, yung naiintindihan po natin kung ano yung tama o mali sa mga bagay na ginagawa natin para makaiwas po tayo sa crime. Next is the psychosexual aspect. This pertains to our being a man or woman. Nagpe-pertains daw po ito sa pagiging lalaki natin o sa babae and the expression of love. In terms of expression of love daw po sa psychosexual aspect. Sa political aspect po is pertains to our ideology towards society or government. Value attitude. This pertains to our interest towards something or like and dislike. Sa value attitude daw po is yung like and dislike. Yung gusto natin or hindi natin gusto. Interest towards something po yun. Sa sunod naman po natin is the determinants of behaviors. Sa determinants of behavior, meron po tayong dalawang factors, ang heredity or biological factors and the environmental factors. Ang environmental factors po ay may subtopic na family background and childhood trauma. Pasok po sa heredity or biological factors. Ang heredity or biological factors ay nagre-refers to the genetic influences, those that are explained by heredity. The characteristic of person acquired from birth transferred from one generation to another. Ang characteristic daw po ng person dito sa biological factor is from birth transferred from one another generation. It is a primarily basis of the idea concerning criminal behavior, the concept that criminals are born. Ang concept daw po sa heredity is ang basis po dito is ang criminals daw po ay born. Gawa po sa heredity or biological factors. Yun po. Environmental factors. This refers to anything around the person that influence his actions. Ayon kay James Coleman in his book mentions some environmental factors such as ito nga po yung family background and childhood trauma. Pasok po sa family background yung it is a basis consideration because it is in the family whereby an individual first experience how to relate and interact with another. The family is said to be the cradle or personality development as a result of either or close or harmonious relationship or a pathogenic family structure. The disturbed family, broken family, separated or maladjusted relation. Childhood trauma. Ang childhood trauma is the experiences ng mga kabataan which affect the feeling of security of a child undergoing development processes. The development processes are being blocked sometimes by parental deprivation as consequence of parent or lack of adequate maturing at home because of parental rejections, overprotections, restrictiveness, overpermissive, and faulty discipline. Yun lang po. Next po dito is the pathogenic family structure. Pasok po sa ang base po dun sa mga past lesson ni ma'am, naintindihan ko po about pathogenic family structure ay yung daw po yun yung mga family associated with high frequency of problem katulad ng the inadequate family or the antisocial family, the discordant or disturbed family, or the disruptive family. Dun muna po tayo sa inadequate family. Ang inadequate family daw po ay kinakarakterize by inability to cope with the ordinary problems of family livings. It lack the resources, physical or psychological for meeting the demands of family satisfactions. Sa the antisocial family naman po, ay sila daw po yung spouse unacceptable values as a result of the influence of parents to their children. Ang sa disordant or disturbed family ay kinakarakterize daw po by non-satisfaction of one or both parents from the relationship that may express feelings or frustration. This is usually due to value differences as common source of conflict and dissatisfactions. Dito daw po sa disordant or disturbant family, kinakarakterize daw po dito yung non-satisfaction of one or both parent, yung parehas na magulang from the relationship that may express the frustration or the feelings. Yun po. Sa last part is the disrupted family. Ang disrupted family po, based dun sa natandaan ko, kinakarakterize po ito ng by incompleteness na in short is para pong itong yung broken family, whether as a result of death, divorce, separation, or some other circumstances. Madami pong madami pong factors ang pwedeng pumasok sa disrupted family. Kaya po pumasok dito yung result of death, divorce, separation, or some other circumstances. Good day po. Pasensya na po at naputol yung PowerPoint ko. Hindi ko po alam kung hindi po nag-save yung kaputol or hindi ko talaga na-save. Yun lang po. Ang last part po natin sa PowerPoint is yung the pathogenic family structure. Meron po dong apat, yung inadequate family, the antisocial family, the disordant or disturbed family, and the disrupted family. Ngayon po, dito naman po tayo sa other determinants of behavior. Meron pong tinatawag na needs and drives. Ayon po sa needs, according to the drive reduction theory, is a biological daw po yung is a biological requirements for a well-being of the individual. Yun daw pong needs ay isang biological requirements para sa isang well-being of the individual. These needs create drives. Kaya po, yung kung naintindihan po natin yung lesson ni ma'am, pasok po doon yung needs and drives. These needs create drives, a psychological states of arousal that prompts someone to take actions. Yun daw pong drives is a psychological state of arousal that prompt someone to take action. Pag sa needs and drives po, papasok po tayo sa motivations. Marami pong motivations ang nakapaloob dun sa lesson 3. Sa motivation po, refers to the influence that govern the initiation, direction, intensity, and persistence of behavior. Yang kagaya po ng mga nabanggit, pasok din po ang isa dito ng causes and whys of behavior by a needs. And ito daw po ay isang hypothetical concept that stands for the underlying force impelling behavior and giving its directions. Nagbibigay daw po ng directions ang motivations. Dahil po, the needs can be classified a biological or psychological needs. Sa biological needs po, pasok po dito yung mga foods, water, sex, pain avoidance, stimulus. Doon naman at may katumbas po itong motivational system. Sa food po is yung ang katumbas naman po sa motivational system nito ay yung tinatawag nating hunger or pagkagutom. Sa pagkagutom po, ang katawan po ay needs ng adequate supply of nutrients to function effectively. Kailangan daw po ng nutrients ang ating katawan para mag-function ng maayos. An empty stomach sometimes drives a person to steal. Bakit nasabi ng statement ng journal ang statement na ito? An empty stomach sometimes drives a person to steal. Gawa po, dala po ng kagutuman is magagawa niyang makapagnakaw para maibsan yung kanyang kagutuman. Yun po ang ibig sabihin nito. Sa sex naman po is a powerful motivator, but unlike food and water, sex is unvital or survival that essential to the survival of species. Yung parang tinatawag po ditong species ay every person or individual po, yung mga individual po, like tayo po. Sa stimulus seeking po, yung sa stimulus seeking, curiosity is most people and animal is motivated. Ang motivated daw po dito ay yung people and animal to explore the environment even with activity, satisfy no bodily needs. Yun po. Next naman po tayo is the psychological needs. Base po doon, meron po tayong biological needs, doon po sa nabanggit. Ang sunod po naman is psychological needs. Sa psychological needs po, ay based po doon sa written journal ko na which is video journal ko na lang po. Ang nakalagay po doon is influenced primarily by the kind of society in which the individual is raised. Yung pinalaki daw po o kung saang society or environment pinalaki yung isang individual or tayo po, kung saan daw po tayo pinalaki. Sunod po is ang psychological motives are those related to the individual's happiness. Motivated daw po dun sa individual happiness and well-being but not for the survival. Unlike the biological motives that focuses on basic needs, the primary motives. Ayon kay Maslow hierarchy of needs, meron siyang 7 nilagay na factors. Biological or psychological needs. Second is safety needs. Third is love belongings. Fourth is cognitive needs. Fifth is esteem needs. Sixth is aesthetic needs. 7 is self-actualization. First is, dun po na tayo sa biological or psychological needs. Kagaya nga po ng nabanggit, include dito yung mga motives that these motives include the need for food, water, oxygen, activity, and sleep. Yun daw po is yung mga primary na pangailangan po. Yung kailangan ng pagkain, tubig, hangin, yung mga pang-araw-araw na ginagawa, and sleep. Sa safety needs daw po natin ay ang pinipertains po dito is yung motives of being cared or pag na inaalagaan for and being secured such as in coming in place to live. Like number 3 po na tayo is love or belongingness. Belongingness is integration into various kind of social group or social organizations Love needs means need for full attentions or affections. Ang love daw po ay kailangan ng affections or attentions ng isang person or individual. Like tayo po, kailangan po natin ng love. Next po is the cognitive needs, which is pamport po natin yun sa Maslow hierarchy of needs. Ayon sa cognitive, our motivation for learning and exploration. It's all about learning and exploration po sa cognitive needs. And fifth is esteem needs. Our motivation for an honest, fundamental respect for a person as useful and honorable human being. Sixth po is the aesthetic needs. Our motivations for beauty and order. Siguro po yung sa aesthetic needs po is yung mga pangailangan natin like damit, yung para maging maayos ang at presentable yung ating katawan or tayo po, maging presentable po tayo. Last po is self-actualization. Pertains to human total satisfaction when people are not motivated too much by unmet needs as by the desire to become all they capable or of self-realization. Next po tayo, kagaya po nung nabanggit, yung mga Maslow hierarchy of needs. Doon naman po tayo sa types of conflicts, which is, dito po ako nalilito eh. Minsan po sa double approach conflict, meron po tayong fourth conflict. First is double approach conflict. Second is the double avoidance conflict. Third is approach avoidance conflict. Fourth is multiple approach avoidance conflict, which is the first is the double approach conflict. Ano nga ba ang double approach conflict? Base sa journal ko, a person is motivated to engage in two desirable activities that cannot be pursued simultaneously. Ang simultaneously po or sunod-sunod cannot be pursued simultaneously. Next po is double avoidance conflict. Ito daw po ay a person face two undesirable situations in which the avoidance of one is the exposure to the other resulting to an intense emotions. Ito daw po ay ang kinalabasan daw po dito is yung intense emotion daw po sa double avoidance conflict. Third is the approach avoidance conflict. Ito po ay a person faces situations having both a desirable and undesirable features. The last one is the multiple approach avoidance conflict. Dito daw po is ang situation daw po in which a choice must be made in between two or more alternatives. Each has both each has both positive and negative features. It is most difficult to resolve because the feature of each portion are often difficult to compare. Dito daw po, sa lesson 3 po is pasok yung anxiety. Anxiety po, at saka stress. Kaya po pumasok dito is, di ba po, sa criminal behavior po tayo. At pasok po yun, ang anxiety at stress. Base po, sa simple, ang anxiety daw po is, it is an intangible that seems to evade any effort to resolve it. It is also called neurotic fear. Neurotic fear daw po ang ang anxiety. Pwede daw po nating tawagin neurotic fear. It could be intense. It could be low and can be a motivating force. Ang stress daw po. Sa stress naman po tayo. Kagaya ng stress na tayo sa mga activity, videos. Ito na po. Sa stress is the process of adjusting to a dealing with circumstances that disrupts or threatens to disrupt a person physical or psychological functioning. So, sa stress daw po ito ay process of adjusting or dealing any circumstances that disrupt or threatens to disrupt a person physical or psychological functioning. Next po is dun po tayo sa Robert Wick cited the following ego defense mechanism. Napakadami pong defense mechanism ni Robert Wick. Andito po ang denial or reality, fantasy, projection, rationalization, and reaction formulation. Ayon po sa denial of reality, protection of oneself from unpleasant reality by refusal to perceive or face it, simply by avoiding something that is unpleasant. Simple daw po, sa pag-iwas ng isang bagay that is unpleasant. Fantasy, the gratification of frustration, desires in imaginary achievement, paying attention not to what is going on around him but rather to what is taking place in his thoughts. Projection. Projection. Ano nga ba ang projection? Placing blame for difficulties, yun po, upon others or attributing one's own unethical desire, unethical desire to others in an effort to prevent ourselves being blamed. Rationalization. Rationalization, the use of excuses. Dito daw po sa rationalization ay gumagamit ng mga excuses an individual to him and to others, attempting to improve that one's behavior is justifiable and thus worthy of self and social approval. Next naman po is the interrogation. Interrogation, pasok din po ito dun sa defense mechanism ni Robert Wick. Interrogation, incorporating external values and standard into ego structure so individual is not at their mercy as external threats. The acceptance of others' value they are contrary to one's own assumption. Yan, dito naman po tayo dun sa common sense po. Meron daw po tayong tinatawag na common sense. Alam niyo naman po tayo kung ano yung common sense. Napakasimple po ng common sense. It is commonly held notion where truth is not depend on judgment, which is based purely on observation, that it is lack the organization of thoughts and jumps to conclusion immediately, is worth of particular attention. Moreover, a deeper understanding of the psychological principle and their application to the field of law enforcement. Dito naman po sa perspective on the causes of criminal behavior. Meron po ditong 5 perspective. The anxiety or the psychological perspective, faulty learning behavior perspective. The third one is the block of distorted personal growth or the humanistic perspective. Fourth is the unsatisfactory interpersonal relationship. And the last one is the fifth, the pathological social condition. Sa anxiety or the psychological perspective, ito daw po yung mga stressful situation that when become extreme may result to maladaptive behavior o yung tinatawag nating abnormal behavior. Faulty learning, behavior perspective. Ito ay failure to learn the necessary adaptive behavior due to wrongful development. This usually result to delinquent behavior based on the failure to learn the necessary social values and norms. The third is the block of distorted personal growth or the humanistic perspective. Presumably, the human nature tends towards cooperation and constructive activities. However, if we show aggression, cruelty, or other violent behavior, the result will be an unfavorable environment. Next po tayo is the unsatisfactory interpersonal relationship. Ito daw po ay self-concept in early childhood by over-critical parent or by rigid socialization measure using causes deviant behavior among individuals because they are not contented and even unhappy. Hindi daw po kontento, kaya po nag-result ito ng pagkalungkot or like pagka-disappoint sa sarili. Like sa next po tayo, the last one is the pathological social condition. Poverty, social discrimination, and destructive violence always result to the deviant behavior. Yun daw po, yung kahirapan, social discrimination, and destructive violence always result to the deviant behavior. Yun daw po ang kahulugan ng pathological social condition about the society of natin po. Society natin. Next po tayo is yung sa mga phobia naman po tayo. Phobia. Sa phobia po, meron po tayong mga phobia like phobia. Ang acrophobia na high place, isa matataas po. Takot po sa matataas. Agoraphobia. Ito po ay ang phobia po nito is yung sa open field or open places. May phobia po siya sa ganun. Algophobia. Ang algophobia po ay ang phobia niya ay sa sakit or pain. Sa astrophobia naman po. Ang astrophobia naman po ay ang pagkakaalam ko po ito po ay sa storms or lightning. Claustrophobia. Ito daw po ay yung sa close place. Kung ang open place ay agoraphobia, ang sa close place naman po is the claustrophobia. Hematophobia. Takot daw po ito sa dugo. Hematophobia. Mysophobia po ay contamination or germs. Takot po daw sa contamination or germs. Next naman po is the hydrophobia or aquaphobia. May keywords na po naman tayo dun sa hydro and aqua, which is ang kinakatatakutan nito ay ang water, tubig. Monophobia. Ang phobia po nito or takot is ang pag-iisa. Di niya po kayang mag-isa sa monophobia. Nyctophobia ay takot daw po sa darkness. Oculophobia, takot sa crowds, yung sa maraming tao. Patholophobia, diseases. Pyrophobia, ang sa fire. Syphilophobia, syphilis. Zoophobia, takot po sa animals. Next po natin is the sensory symptoms of hysteria. The anesthesia, loss of sensitivity, hypesthesia, or the partial loss of sensitivity to pain, paresthesia, exceptional sensation. Motor symptoms of hysteria. Paralysis. Ang paralysis daw po ay selective loss of function. Yung kunwari po, patay yung kabila ng katawan. Naparalisado na po itong kabilang to. At ito po yung nagpa-function pa. Konting function na lang po, yung paggalaw-galaw po. Next please. Sa second po is the astasia abasia. Ito daw po yung inability to control leg when standing. Next po, alponia, partial, initial to speak. Mutism, total inability to speak. Hindi na po nakapagsalita o pipe. Next po is last sa po tayo, papasok naman po tayo sa brain pathology amnesia. Ang brain pathology amnesia po is total loss of memory and it cannot be retrieved by simple means. Requires po ito ng long period of time of medication. Psychogenic amnesia. Failure to recall stored information and still they are beneath the level of consciousness but forgotten materials. Next po natin is the classification of mood disorder. Depressive disorder. Meron po tayo sa depressive disorder ay ang major depressive disorder. Patient with depressed mood have a loss of energy and interest sa feelings. Natatanggalan daw po ng interest sa feelings of guilt, difficulty in concentrating, nahirapan sa mag-concentrate, loss of appetite, and thoughts of death or suicide. They are not affected with manic episode. Next po is dystemic disorders. Ang dystemic disorder po is a mild lang po ang dystemic, mild form of major depressive disorder. Bipolar disorder. Those experienced by patient with both manic and depressive episode. Ito naranasan daw po ng may bipolar disorder, both manic and depressive episode. Sa cyclotemic disorder po ay a less severe from a bipolar disorder. Next po tayo is Sa sexual reversal naman po tayo. Homosexuality. It is sexual behavior directed towards the same sex. It is sectors. It is so-called lesbian tribalism for female relationship. Transvestism refers to the achievement of sexual excitation by dressing as a member of the opposite sex, such as man who wear female apparel. Fetishism. Sexual gratification is obtained by looking at some body parts, underwear of the opposite sex or other objects associated with the opposite sex. As to the choice of partner, pedophilia. Sa choice daw po ito ng partner. Pagpili ng partner daw po. Pag pedophilia, ang sexual perversion where the person has the compulsive desire to have a sexual intercourse with a child of either sex. Bestiality. Ang bestiality daw naman po ay yung sexual gratification is attained by having sexual intercourse with animals. Autosexual. It is called self-abuse. Sexual satisfaction is carried out without the cooperation of others. Gerontophilia is a sexual desire with an elder person. Necrophilia, an erotic desire or actual intercourse with the corpse. As to the part of the body, sodomy. Sa sodomy daw po is a sexual through the anus or the sexual partner. Alam niyo naman po yung anus. Sa uranism. Sa uranism daw po yung sexual gratification is attained through fingering, holding the breast, or licking part of the body. Fruitage. The act of rubbing the sex organ against body parts of the other. Nirarab daw po para ma-attain yung sexual gratification. Partialism. Partialism. If refers to the libido on any part of the body of a sexual partner. As to the visual stimulus naman po tayo. Voyeurism. The person is commonly called the peeping Tom. An achievement of sexual pleasure through clandestine peeping such as peeping to dressing room, couples room, toilets, etc. And frequently, the person masturbate during the peeping activity. Sculptophilia. The intentional act of watching people undress or during sexual intimidates. As to the number of participants in the sexual act. Troilism. Ito daw po yung sa bilang ng participant pagdating sa sexual act or sexual habang ginagawa yung sexual act. Troilism. Ito po yung pumapasok yung parang threesome. 3 person participate in sex orgy such as 2 women versus 1 man or vice versa. Pwede pong 2 men and 1 woman, and sa kabila naman po is 2 women or 1 man. Pluralism. Ito po ay group of person in sexual orgies such as couple to couple sexual relation. It is called sexual festival. Other sexual abnormalities. Exhibitions. It is called indecent exposure, intentional exposure of genitals to member of the opposite sex under inappropriate condition. Next po is pasok naman po dito yung the use of obscene language to achieve sexual satisfaction. And Don Juanism naman po ay isang act of seducing woman or girl as a career without permanency of sexual partner of companion. Yun lang po ang pasok sa journal video ko na naintindihan ko po about sa lesson 3 na which is the study of criminal behavior. Yun lang po, and thank you for watching. See you on lesson 4. Thank you.